Warriors, it is such a treat today to bring my friend, your friend, Wambui, back to the program. We feel it's necessary to talk about a variety of issues that we want to bring forward. And Wambui is an expert. I'm calling her an expert. Not only is she a dear friend, mental illness, domestic violence. Wambui is an actress. She's a storyteller, author, mom, grandma, name it. She's done it, she's doing it, and she's infectious. Her energy, the way she relates information. So I wanted Wambui to come back and just talk to us. You know, that February is, I like to bring this up because nobody's talking about it, Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And a lot of this goes back, you know, when you study about it we have a crisis in America with youth mental health. So we are so lucky that Wambui wants to join us and talk about her journey and share information she knows to intervene and help and protect others. So we're just going to have a casual conversation. Get your notebooks out, I like to say, and just listen to us. And please follow the fabulous work of Wambui, wambui.com. Now, everybody, I'm urging you, not right now. Wait until we're done talking. You can see how Wambui spells her name. It's right there for you, WAMBUI.com. Very easy. Wambui, welcome back to the Warriors.
Thank you, Lynn. I'm happy to be back.
And I am thrilled. I'm thrilled with you. Yeah. I mean, jump off anywhere you want to. I just know that you're infectious. This is the way I view you. And whatever you're willing to share about your journey is so valuable to the public. So whatever you want to start talking about.
Well, first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about mental illness. And before I even start, I want to do a disclaimer for this conversation. I'm obviously not a doctor. I'm only going to be speaking from my personal experiences. I've had doctors and people in the field who were wonderful and who I felt like they really cared about what was happening to me. And I've also had professionals who I worked with who they were there for a paycheck. And I just felt it was a waste of both of our times. So I'm not bashing the mental health system with anything that I say. I can only speak from what my journey was. And so the first thing I would like to share is whenever I do a presentation on mental illness, mental health, I always bring a copy of this. What this is a copy of the original letter from the Social Security Administration back in 1996 when they awarded me they call it an award, awarded me my disability.
Award. Yeah.
They call it an award, right? So I'm just going to read some excerpts from this, not the whole thing, obviously, but just some excerpts because I think it gives people a better idea of where I was, because the person who's sitting here right now was not that person back in 96. And so it just says the claimant has a bipolar disorder and a personality disorder, which are considered to be severe. The medical evidence of record reveals that the claimant has a diagnosed impairment due to a bipolar disorder with a history of episodic periods manifested by the full symptomatic picture of both manic and depressive syndromes. She also has a diagnosed impairment due to a personality disorder, characterized by inflexible and maladaptive personality traits, which cause significant impairment in social and occupational functioning. This impairment is evidenced by intense and unstable interpersonal relationships and impulsive and damaging behavior. The claimant has a long history of psychiatric hospitalizations and long-term outpatient psychiatric treatment with counseling and medication. In spite of this treatment, the claimant continues to experience regular relapses. And they go on to say that Dr. Blank performed a DDS psychiatric evaluation on December 30th, 1994, and diagnosed the claimant as having bipolar cyclic disorder with a history of psychosis and a borderline personality disorder. Dr. Blank completed a medical assessment of ability to do work-related activities on the mental form, on which he indicated that the claimant had from very good to no ability to make occupational performance and personal occupational adjustments depending on the illness. He noted that the claimant experienced frequent decompensation with at least 9 long-term psychiatric admissions that he is aware of. And so the fact that I am here today, I can't
You're
express.
A warrior. You're a warrior.
I'm a warrior, and I am here. And what I want to share mainly is that there is hope for all of us. And the 2 questions I get mainly asked is, well, how did you do that? How did you get out of the system? And how can I do that? And I think there were 2 things that were the main causes of that. And the first one was when I really started, well, first of all, they were getting ready to take my children permanently.
Okay.
And so at that time, I felt like all bets were off. I had to do what I needed to do. I felt like I was not getting better. I was on I was on so many medications. Half of the medications I was on were for the side effects of the first set of medications. So I started looking for things that I can do. And I think one of the things 2 things happened. I ran into someone who was being cured from cancer, and she told me it was about her diet. And I said, well, nobody ever talked to me about my diet. But if you can make somebody be better or make the cancer less because of what you eat, well, maybe I should look into that. And I started looking into that. And to this day, there are only certain things that I will eat. When I go out, I have a good time. I mean, I don't drink or anything like that, but I will eat if it's good. But when I'm home, I'm very careful about what I eat. And I know my son-in-law said to me one time, he said, you know how much money you could save if you didn't try to do everything organic?
Oh, no.
And I said, that's not even an option.
Yes.
And I also cut down on sugar. I may have jumped ahead, but those are some of the things that I did that I know make a difference that they don't tell you about when you're in the hospital. It's as if your whole mental is separated from your body. You know, we got medical insurance, we got dental insurance, we got vision insurance. And then, you know, there's a whole nother category for if you have mental issues, but nobody puts the whole body together. And a lot of that, as I spoke in my last conversation with you, and tell me if I'm just all over the place. I'm just trying, and I'm not.
No, keep going. Keep going, please.
So one of the things that I find with people who have mental illnesses is that there's usually something, a trauma that happened, or they're dealing with something that they've even forgot about, they push down, or there's a trauma that they just can't seem to get over. And so they start acting out. In my way of acting out was just to go take my mind and go away. And I was doing irrational things and making irrational decisions. Somebody else may turn to alcohol or even turn to drugs or just, be promiscuous and just find a way to act out because you're having a hard time dealing with the world. What I believe, Lynn, is unless you were born with some kind of mental something wrong already, or you were in an accident that hurt your brain or something, this is my belief. I believe that nobody is really, okay, I'm going to go there. I don't believe that any of us are really insane. I believe that we're reacting to the insanity that is out and around us. You know how now they're saying, oh, we have a mental health crisis because of COVID. Well, these people are not crazy. The people are reacting to the fact that we were told to do the exact opposite of what would be necessary for us to be healthy. We were isolated. We told our children, don't go on the screens, as little screen time as possible. And what did we do? We introduced them to the screens. And kids who had never been on screens before were now forced to be on screens in order to be in a classroom. And so we were separated from our loved ones, our grandmother, we couldn't. And then they wonder, oh my God, we got a mental health crisis. Well, yeah, you know, we hear the same thing if there's a bad storm, hurricanes. They say, oh, in this area where the hurricane was, we have a mental health crisis now. Well, yeah, because they lost everything. Their futures are uncertain. These are not crazy people, but they don't know. They're reacting to the insanity that is outside of them. And one of the best examples I know for this is I was in Roosevelt Hospital on the psych ward when in 1980, I believe it was 1986, when Black Monday, when the market crash came.
86, right. Mm-hmm.
And I was told I had to leave because there were people who needed my bed, who were sicker than I was at that moment. And I didn't realize till I got out who these people were, but the gurneys were lined up. And these were people who that morning, they weren't crazy. They had never had a mental health crisis, most of them, before. But they were reacting to the fact that they woke up one morning and they were financially secure. And by noon, they had nothing. So that's why I say I don't believe that any mental illness, I believe it's all a reaction to what is going on in the world, and that we can. The other thing, in addition to that, is if you're dealing with a mental illness, I encourage you to look at the history of mental illness, which is what I did. When I looked at the history of mental illness, it didn't make sense to me. There's even, it was pretty much like a lot of the medical system is broken. The mental health system is broken. And a lot of it just, when I looked at it, it didn't make sense. I used to think, for instance, that when they would say, oh, I'd go to the hospital, they say, oh, you have bipolar, or you have this, or you have that. I thought they were taking a test, that there was something in my blood or something in my bones, that they could see that I had this. Oh, she's got bipolar. And what I found out is there is no test. It's just somebody's evaluation of you. And I also found out that depending on the insurance I had at the time, I could be admitted or not admitted with the same symptoms. Lynn, one time, I was admitted to a hospital. I was taken to my room. The people who worked there helped me unpack and put things in the drawers. And then they came back a half hour later and they packed everything up and said, your insurance doesn't pay for this hospital. And they sent me on my way. No referral, no nothing. I was just on my way. So one of the things that I like to share is that the one person who cares about you the most is going to be you, and that there's no magic pill. There's no magic answer. I used to think there were pills that could cure me, that could help me. And I'm not going to say there was never anything that helped me, because when you're on the edge and you're about to do some real damage, then taking a pill to calm you down or a shot that's going to make you reconsider later, that's important. But as far as the long term, I was starting to find out that I wasn't really being given, like I said, the diet, the things about things, to go forward. And one of the people that in my book I give credit for at the time having been a catalyst for me turning my life around, Tony Robbins. Now, I was in a suicide mode, and I was living in public housing in North Carolina at the time. My children had been moved to their father's house, and I felt like there's nothing to live for here. And there was this commercial on TV with this man talking about how you could improve the quality of your life with some tapes. And I just thought that was so unfair and so mean for him to tell people, how could a tape change your life? And if it really worked, why didn't any of my doctors ever tell me about it?
Right.
So he was really, I ordered the tape for all the wrong reasons. I ordered the tape because at that time I thought I wanted to expose him as a phony, a fraud, and a fake. This doesn't work. You can't change your life with some tapes. I ordered the tapes, and in order to, I don't know if it was God working to me at that time, but I felt like I had to do everything he said to do, just like he said to do it, so that when I wrote my report, I could say, look, I did everything he told me to do. And so I started doing that. And it was as if he was speaking to me personally. All the things he would say, he talked about the power within. He talked about mental illness. And he even said that on the tape. Maybe something somebody you had says you have, but it's not who you are. It's just something that you have. And he also said the past does not equal the future.
Yes.
And I tell you, Lynn, I got caught up in what he was saying. I got crazy enough to believe that I could turn my life around, like he kept saying. He kept saying, you don't have to, wherever you are now, you can change it. And people had said that to me before, but I believe that is true, that the teacher will appear when the student is ready. Yes. You know how sometimes you see people going to people on the street who are drug addicts, and they say, well, if I could get you treatment today, would you come? And they say, no, they're not ready. You know, and so I had heard things like that. People had said things like that to me, but I didn't hear it. But when I heard it on those tapes with Tony Robbins, I heard it. I started doing everything he said to do. And one of the main things he asked is, he said, what would you do if you could do something and you felt that you could not fail? What would you do? And I thought, I'd like to be in the theater again. I'd like to act. But then I thought, well, I've been away for like 10 years now. All the agents and people that I knew have moved on, passed on. And I don't know how to do that. And plus, if they hear about the fact that I have all these mental health issues, no one's going to hire me anyway. And so I thought, yes, what would I do? I thought, well, I want to do a show. And I said, I've never written a show before, but I want to write a show. In fact, I'm going to write a musical. And so I started sitting down, and here's the thing too, for everybody who has ever been diagnosed with anything, you can do whatever you want to do because people think you're nuts already. So you are free. That sort of gives you freedom. At least for me, it did.
That's actually interesting.
Because I said, I'm going to write this musical. Yeah, baby, that's nice. Go write your musical. And so I went and I did that. And because I wanted to perform, and I knew about my mental health journey and my life and what was going on. So I wrote the show about it, and I started performing it at little, the YWCA, stuff like that. And then finally it caught the attention of the national NAMI, National Alliance for, it used to be called Mental Illness. Yes. Anyway, so that's how it all started. And the same with the diet. People would come to my mother's house and say, Eva, my mother's name is Eva. They'd say, Eva, because I'd be making up some concoction in the blender. They'd say, Eva, what is she doing? And my mother would go, let her let her do her thing. And so I was able to, I find that is like the worst thing somebody can say about you is you're crazy. Well, if you've already been diagnosed, then you are free to do whatever, follow your dream, do what you need to do, as long as you're not hurting anybody and interfering with anybody else's dream. You do your thing.
I like that.
In the history of mental illness, one of the reasons why I say when you look at the history, it doesn't add up. In slavery time, like around the 1850s, there lived a man named Samuel Cartwright, I believe, Samuel. He was a physician, and he coined a disease. He said there was a disease called drapetomania. Have you ever heard of drapetomania?
No.
Drapetomania is lookupable on the internet. Drapetomania. he said was a mental illness. And the how you knew that a slave had this mental illness is because they had an intense desire to run away and be free. And that was considered a mental illness. It was a real thing. And then there were just other illnesses that people made up out of the blue for whatever you felt like you wanted to do. That was an illness. So, we got to rein you back in. You have an illness. You don't want to be free. And so they would say that the slaves had a mental illness if they wanted to be free. And today I find that sometimes how sometimes just speaking the wrong thing can get you landed in a mental hospital. Somebody will say, oh, it's based on people don't believe in your beliefs. And so they can easily say this person is crazy just based on
use it against you. Yeah.
What you're saying. And so, I don't know. Ask me a question.
I like to listen to you. I feel very lucky. Working with trafficking, I've never been trafficked or exploited. The more I do in this field, the more I find how common it is. As far as mental illness, you brought out a lot of good points. So many different ones. Something I talk about a lot with my husband, we just talk about, is food. Food is medicine.
It is.
I will always say, I've never once in my entire life had a doctor ask me, what is your diet like? What do you eat? Never once. Okay. I've never heard it with with my children. Never. And I know that so much could be solved with just food. Okay. But we know, and I want to say warning, buckle up, whatever you want to put here. I'm glad you put out a warning. I'm not a doctor either. We're talking about the reality. We're not even giving advice. Wambui is just relating her journey, and I'm showcasing it because I think it's important for people to understand you are not alone. You are not alone. This is not, because that is what I hear, Wambui, so much, whether it's children or adults. I'm alone. And they get worse, or they take drugs, or they drink, and this self-medication. No, we want to bring it to the forefront. It's okay to talk about it, and let's figure out your next steps, or just listen to your journey. Just you bringing up the food. I didn't know we were talking about that, because we don't plan that. This is a casual conversation. People should look at their diets. That's
Most
definitely an easy thing. That's an easy thing for people to do. And of course, non-GMO and organic, it does cost more. But the bottom line is, because that's always an argument in underserved communities, they can't afford it. They can't. Well, first of all, it's never put in underserved communities. The markets don't, right? They've got the sodas and the chips and all the stuff that's making the obesity in this country, right? So it's, again, that big wheel with a lot of spokes that has to be, society has to be looked at with all these issues. But we know clean food, non-GMO, much healthier. Maybe,
well, one thing,
right?
Lynn, too, is when we talk about food, I think most of us have been at a birthday party with the little children, and eventually some of them start acting like just wild. And we say, oh, Johnny's got a sugar high.
All the
sugar.
time.
Yes, sugar. And so, and there is a book called Sugar Blues that talks about just that, how eliminating the sugar from the diet calmed down inmates in prisons. It just made people just chill out when you don't have all
it's
that
an
sugar.
addiction. No, there are different studies that show processed foods with sugar truly are an addiction. And that's the point we're at. But again, very few doctors, healthcare, they don't discuss diet, because after all, what's the bottom line? Let's just patch somebody up, prescribe a medication.
And about not feeling alone, I think this is what I found out, is that a lot of people are just good actors. I mean, they're not professional actors, but they're good actors. They have issues, they have problems, but they're able, when they walk out of their house, you don't know what they're dealing with. And because they think they are alone, they're not going to talk about it with you. And so you think you're the only one feeling this pressure or depression, or feeling this this way, this anxiety. You think you're the only one feeling it because everybody else, when they put on their clothes and
Yes.
makeup, hair, they're like, ta-da. And that's the way they present in public. But I really believe if you knew the amount of people who actually are dealing with so much in their heads, but they just feel like, I'm not going to talk about it. I shouldn't show it. Nobody wants to hear it. And so we don't know. So we're all going around with our own little issues going on in our head. And we're just passing each other. How you doing? Fine. Okay, good. And we don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, but it's always, we don't, as you know, I always used to say, we don't know what goes on behind that closed door. You know, what somebody, it looks like they're acting like, what they have, one never knows. And I think it's such a loaded, you know, we'll have to do several segments with you. This is what I'm scared our young people have. We have the studies again, you know, they've seen so much on the internet, every platform, whether it's TikTok and the Kim Kardashians, the Cardi B's, the money, the this, the cars, the clothes, the designer handbags. And the young people feel like they don't have that. And my life is ruined. Why don't I have that? So they're turning to self-medication. Like how, I think that is the saddest thing. Because we've always had the feeling somebody has more than we do, or why do they have that and I don't, or whatever the situation may be. But the thing is, people aren't dealing with their feelings. Instead of trying, you know, critically analyzing something or trying to figure, like even you, I'm all over the place. Did you agree with that diagnosis that you read? Like if you, think
I agreed with it at the time.
Because how do we know? How do we know?
At the time.
Yeah.
But
in retrospect, because
in retrospect, I believe that the fact that I was able when I walked, because I let them know I was going to walk away. And their answer was, well, if you're going to walk away, we can't be responsible. We're going to have to close your case, but you'll be back. I had attempted, you know, I'd get mad at the medication, mad at the doctor, and say I'm not coming back. And it was true. I'd always end up back. I think it was a frame of mind. It all had to do with changing the way I thought about myself. And, you know, I did eventually meet Tony Robbins. But I did eventually meet him, and I met him at one of his fire walks, which is a whole controversial thing.
Really?
There.
You walked on those hot rocks and all that?
I did. It was actually hot wood chips. It was wood chips. The fire department had to be there. It was in Baltimore. The fire department had to be there. Before we even did the walk, we had to go out, and he just had to get us used to feeling the heat because it was a real fire. And then he took us back in and prepared us for what was going to happen. We had to, well, I don't want, but it was all about seeing yourself all the way on the other side before you even started. And there would be somebody, he said, on the other side that would grab you the minute you step off, because they had to hold your feet down because those embers were going to be stuck in your feet. And if you walk away and let your guard down, you're going to hurt yourself. So, yeah, it took me a long time. Kept getting in line, but I did it. And I'm happy I did it. And sometimes when things get heavy, I say, oh my God, you walked on fire. You can, whatever this is, you can handle this.
No, let me tell you something. Sharing that story, seeing a commercial with Tony Robbins, ordering yourself that tape or tapes, that was your savior at that, you know.
At that, yes, most definitely. As I mentioned before, at this time, I've gone back to church and I have renewed my vows with Jesus and all that. And I feel such comfort. In fact, that's the only way I know I get through each day now, is the comfort of knowing that I have a savior who loves me. And so that's how I do it. But at that time, I feel like God was working through Tony Robbins. I mean, what are the odds? But
I don't know.
He came with a message that I needed to hear.
No, but that is,
I give them credit for saving my life. I do.
No, that,
So,
and you should. It's interesting, and that's what I want to impart on anybody watching, listening. It may not be anything we can imagine or think, that stands out to us to help us. I'm all about whatever it takes to help somebody heal, get better, have a clearer path, get on that road. That's what I want, especially our young people, to figure out.
mhm.
Don't go on Snapchat and
Mm-mm,
order that $5 pill that we
mm-mm.
know almost all of them are now cut with fentanyl. And this is what's
Most
happening,
definitely.
you know,
Mhm,
to
mhm.
figure some other, whether it's listening to this, listening to somebody else, getting a book, something like that. What would you recommend? So somebody's listening and they're like, oh, okay. Because we all have good days, bad days. Some days we're up more than other days. That's just life. But we are so lucky, Wambui, that we can like get up every day, kind of thing. What would you tell somebody right now? They're like, oh my goodness, I just can't get out of this. Like I can't. Do you recommend organizations? Is it a NAMI? Like what are the resources? Because NAMI
I
I've worked
believe.
with, and
Mhm,
they're nationwide. But
mhm.
tell us, what do you think somebody should do? Because people are crippled. They can't make that next
Um,
move.
I believe that having a connection is very good. Um, I I'm happy that I was introduced to NAMI at the time, and but you also have to realize that what it just brings you together. But I more than that, I would tell the young people to try to start a conversation with your best friend or someone who says they got you, and say, hey, sometimes I feel like this. Do you ever feel like this? Or sometimes I just don't know. Am I the only one that feels like this? And I bet you'll get a conversation going back and forth where you'll find out that your friend your has those same feelings, and you decide together that you're going to work it out. You're going to think bigger. You're going to, like I say, maybe stop eating so much junk food, and maybe stop listening to music that's depressing and has lyrics
Mhm.
that are not good lyrics, that don't send a good message. Even if you're not doing um, you know, gospel or religious music, listen to music where it's uplifting. Start listening to people who have an uplifting message for you. And that would be the first thing I would say, is just
Connection.
start listening. Cut off. I don't have TV. I haven't had TV, since like 2004.
Wow.
I don't have TV. And not to say there's not TV in this house. My sister loves TV, but I don't watch it. And I don't want to watch it. And at this time, there's something about the background sound that is so uncomfortable for me. But I
Really?
realized
Interesting.
that the TV didn't say anything that was, I mean, they had a feel good story every now and then, but for the most part, it was bad news. And then eventually I found out news that was not necessarily all true news. And so I
Yeah.
just stopped. And I believe once you stop, I know today it would be like not so much the TV, but you got to stop TV and get off your
Internet.
internet. But when you do that, that's when I started crafting. It's like, and that's when I wrote the book. It's like you find out you have all this time that you're not doing anything with. And I believe, okay, so I believe that when you're in that suicide place, which I've been a lot of times in the past in suicidal, where I just feel like it's like a pain, it's like a toothache in your soul. And you just feel like you can't get rid of it. What you need to do is get rid of you. And so, what I want to share is that it is possible. It is possible to leave this world without destroying the body. And one of the ways to leave the world is to focus on something that's not of the world. Like that's when you start your crafting, and that's when you start writing, and that's when you start maybe even volunteering and taking care of somebody who needs help in your neighborhood or community. So you're not
Right.
you want to go outside of you uh, there was a guy named Wayne Dyer who was
Yeah.
an
Wayne Dyer.
author. Okay, I remember he used to see patients, and one time I remember reading, he said he had a patient that he didn't know what he was going to do with her. She was just terminally and forever depressed. And so he said to her one day, "Do you notice that you're more depressed in the morning or in the evening?" And she said, "I notice that I am more depressed in the evening." And he said, "Ah, that's good." He says, "I want you to stay with the noticer, because there's a part of you that is still noticing things. So
Mm.
I don't want you to be the person with the depression. I want you to be that person who's noticing, and tell me what else you're noticing, and start noticing things that are grander than you and that are more beautiful. I want you to stick with the noticer." Does that make sense? It makes sense to me. It's like, there's a part of you
Yes.
that still notices. So all of you is
Right.
not this
Gone.
big
Yeah.
blob of
Wow.
depression.
No,
So,
that's good. No, but Wayne Dyer did all those books like Dianetics and all that kind of soul searching, and
yes, I
also,
was a long time ago, I was very much new age.
no,
And
but
so he was one of the people, he
no,
was
but
very much on my list.
Wambui,
And
anything that gets somebody to move
right.
forward. I work with a lot of youth, and they recommend a lot, exercising, getting out,
Yes,
running,
moving.
walking, being with nature, do that
Yes,
kind of
yes.
thing.
And
I want,
then get things that make you laugh, but that are not, our comedy sometimes is like we're laughing at people, but find something that's just genuinely funny, where you're not laughing at somebody, you're just having a good time
right.
laughing. I think
I think
that's
you
good.
picked up on an important thing that, and we have to realize, because I spoke to a young person the other day, and almost 30 now, but when he was a teenager, he's a filmmaker now.
Hmm.
He could, he was crippled with anxiety. Just
Hmm.
he can't do what we're even talking about. But what he always had was a camera. So like he could
I,
always live and
I know who
film
you're
and
talking about,
create.
and I saw his
Okay.
movie, and it was
Okay.
brilliant. Hmm.
So like I'm trying to push past that, but we do a lot of work and talk about suicide with kids at the Warriors. We have to remember, we have to always ask, not once, not twice. I think in 2024, what am I trying to say to you? We have a duty now, a duty of care to our fellow man, women, to keep an eye on everybody. I really believe this now, that we have to check on our neighbors
Hmm.
as much as we can. It's a tough call. It's a tough ask. We have to watch out for kind of all children. Again, that's another tough thing. How are we going to accomplish all this? You just don't ask, how are you doing? You have to follow up. You have to be there if you're maybe a family member, a good friend. It's kind of, again, this circle with these pieces that we constantly have to do every single day. It's not good enough to do it once. Well, how are you doing? Or somebody had a problem and you're not constantly following up. And again, I want to point out, as people report to me, you're scaring me. It's dark. It's ugly. Well, if you're not scared with what's going on today, with all of
Hmm.
these issues, we have to scare people. We have to appropriately let them know. And I'm just so honored that you share like your story, your journey. I want to point out though, I guess I'll give NAMI out as an organization. People can,
Hmm.
NAMI.org is the website, National
Hmm.
Alliance Mental Illness. They have a lot of
Hmm.
resources one can find in their area. Also, always everybody should know 988, which is now the 3-digit code for suicide prevention. So 988, even if you just have questions, you can
Hmm.
ask a parent, a family member. It's free. You call up, you can ask questions. There's no paying, there's no holding accountable. And certainly if you're in a crisis mode, but there's also, they just put out something, Wambui, I think is interesting. It's called 988.umatter uh, Lifeline. I'm going to
Oh,
post all this in the body of the
yeah.
video
Okay.
because
I'm
I
gonna
want
come up.
people to always have takeaways, resources,
Yeah.
and obviously we're going to have all your information. Um, Finish us up. I want us to empower people. They are
Mm,
not, I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to brainwash everybody. Everybody's brainwashed with disruption and nonsense that gets you nowhere. Will make you more depressed. Will make you
mhm,
think there's no hope. We give hope at the
mhm.
Warriors. Finish us up. What you want people to know, not that any of this can be a finished up topic. We will be continuing, down the road. What do you want people to know right now about Wambui, about what's out there, about anything?
Well, um, one thing
It's a loaded
is
question, but
in the in this well, as we live in this world today, one of the things that I think people should not try to do, because you're going to hurt yourself, is try to make sense of everything.
Mm,
Understand that everything is not going to make sense, and that's okay. And understand that nobody, they're not going to save us. It is up for us to save ourselves. What I found is that, like I said, there is no magic pill.
mhm.
There is no magic something that's going to change you. If you need help, I advise you to seek help in that moment before you do something that you may regret later. But understand that you are ultimately responsible, and you can be. I know
Yes.
people try to tell you you're not responsible. You need this person. You need this professional, this professional, this professional. I think that just start seeking things. Change the tape in your head. That's what I had to do. Change the tape in my head so that I was playing a tape that made me feel better and more empowered each day. I don't know. That's my advice.
You do know because
Okay.
you
so,
we're
so,
we're laughing, but it feels good. It feels good to
yes.
laugh.
Yes.
Listen, I like to use the word infectious with you because you are. Your smile, um, that you're willing to share. Our goal at the Warriors is if we help one person a day, one child, we share resources, raise awareness, education. I want everyone, Wambui.com. It's so easy to go there. Wambui will do workshops. She'll come and speak to your organization. She'll come to your school, your women's group, your men's group, whatever it is. We need to get out there and start showing everybody what this looks like, can look like, and that there's life, there's hope.
There's life. There's hope.
And no, this is a beautiful life, and we have to grab on and just keep on that path, right on that path, right? No matter how hard it is. Um,
One more
I'll
thing. One more
yeah,
thing.
go ahead.
There were
Sure.
so many times when I attempted suicide and I did not.
Well, wait a minute, Wambui. How
And,
many
and
times
now
was
look
this?
at me.
You
Now look at me. That
no,
what I'm, and I'm not going to say that in a bodacious way, but I say that when, if you think you can always go back and do that, I know that sounds good, but put it on hold. Just every day say, I'm not going to commit suicide today. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to see what happens this day. I'm going to see what happens this day. And you will find that if you just hang in there and just keep going
it's
forward,
better.
it's going to eventually start changing. It will, it will, it will, it will, it will. So just hang in there. If you feel like, oh, I can't take it, I'm going to take these pills. No, 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 no. You can always take the pills tomorrow. Okay. But hang in there one more day. You can always take them the next day, but see what happens. If I had done what I was trying to do, I would have missed my grandchildren. I would have missed so many things. I would have missed so many happy moments that I have
Me.
had over the last few. I would have missed Lynn. So when you're having that, just put it off. You can put it off. You know, if you're going to do it anyway, then do it tomorrow or next week or next month and see what happens. Okay, that's what.
I like that. And you're always going to pick up a phone and call me about anything
Yes,
because I got your back. Well,
yes, yes.
Wambui, thank you for sharing today. I'll just leave it with you are a warrior, Wambui.com. Thank you. We will definitely be speaking
Thank
again
you.
soon. We love you. God bless you. I'm always here from you for you. Love you.
Thank you.